Good evening. I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker this evening, Carol Clark. Carol is an amateur botany enthusiast, a Texas Master Naturalist, a longtime member of the Native Plant Society of Texas. She chairs the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas Committee for NPSOT. She and her husband own and operate Clark Haven, a wildlife preserve and custom wildflower seed business in Cooke County. Carol grew up with a nature photographer father and wildlife artist brother, and has spent much of her life looking around in the great outdoors. Her favorite things to do are leading discovery walks in local natural areas and finding and photographing interesting plants.
It's safe to say I've been passionate about plants and animals ever since I can remember. I grew up fooling around, playing outdoors, playing with leaves and plants and insects and you name it. And kept all kinds of inadvisable pets when I was little. But anyway, this talk came about because a local nursery, which does a lot of business in native plants, asked me to come talk for their webinar series about the Native Plant Society. So it was not, officially requested by the Native Plant Society. It was simply to please this nursery that we worked with a lot in the past. And therefore, you're not going to find the really nice uniform slides that the Native Plant Society tends to put out on its official products. So this is my product, not an official product of the Native Plant Society is what I'm getting at. But way back in 1981, Carol Abbott and some friends of his got together and decided to start the Native Plant Society of Texas. He really was a visionary. He realized that at some point, native plants were going to be pressured by all the development and the people moving to Texas. And he was right. It's gotten to be a fever pitch problem right now. But the mission of the Native Plant Society was said at that time to promote research, conservation, and utilization of native plants and plant habitats of Texas through education, outreach, and example. So let's see, who are we? We're a very diverse group of people. We're amateurs, we're professionals, we're landscapers, we're hobby gardeners, we're plant enthusiasts involved in the study, the appreciation, and that can be as simple as, taking a walk and looking at things, the conservation and the use of native plants. And this is so important. No special qualifications are needed. If you want to be in one of our chapters, we'd like you to be in one of our chapters. And there are lots of chapters all over the state, so you can find one near you. What can we do for you? All kinds of things. First of all, I think you'll find friends at your Native Plant Society chapter, like-minded people who like doing what you like to do. And there's all kinds of stuff going on. You can choose to participate in some or all of it. We're not like master gardeners. We don't require service hours to be recorded. We're very, very different. We can inspire you, provide speakers that you can learn from, all kinds of networking. There are grants, field trips, educational opportunities, and lots of resources online that we're going to be looking at tonight. There's also botanical advice. I think the one thing I did not put into the slideshow was that we co-administer the Texas Flora Facebook page. Very simply, it's called Texas Flora. And if you have a question about a plant or a question about whether a plant is or isn't native or what it is, that's a great place to ask on Facebook. Okay, let's move on. We've got lots to talk about, and I honestly don't know how long this will run because I've been popping in new slides since the state officials have all kinds of new things going on. This is a wildflower meadow near me that was not man planted. This is what they naturally look like near me on a chalky escarpment. And, I just never want to see the day when all of these little pockets are gone. We're getting down to very, very few tiny remnant prairies where I live. And I want to encourage you all to get involved and start noticing and saving these last little bits where you are before it's too late. Well, ours have mostly been gobbled up to development. This is another native prairie, the Climber Meadow, an excellent example that includes gilgai, strange land formations, and it's much bigger than that other little pocket prairie, but we need to be about ensuring that these things are still there. And one of the ways to do that is to get people excited about them, educated about them, interested in them. NPSOT has a lot of formal programs and they have heads and all kinds of documentation. They have formal descriptions, but here are some of those. The NLCP, a lot of times I hear those letters out of order, but it stands for Native Landscape Certification Program. The Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas program, we usually call that BBMT because, like the Native Landscape Certification Program, it's a mouthful to say all the words. NPSOT runs spring and fall symposiums where you will hear presenters, you will go on field trips, all kinds of good things going on there, and research is sometimes presented at those as well. They have a whole communications wing. Right now, Jim Karras is heading that up. So if you have anything that you want to say to the head of communications, send an email to Jim Karras and he will distribute that to the correct person, whether that is the magazine editor, newsletter editor, the website maintainer, the Facebook page person, or any other people on the publications and communications team. We run a grants and scholarships program. Some of these are for undergraduates, some of them are for graduates, and I don't think that's necessarily the end of it. That could expand in future years. There's all kinds of education going on. There's a speakers bureau that you can find online and lots of other resources, everything from the attributes of a monarch way station to how to make seed paper and seed balls, and many documents sort of hidden in the recesses of the state website. You have to push a lot of tabs and explore it for yourself to find out all the things that are hiding there. Let's start with the Native Landscape Certification Program. It certifies people, not landscapes. So it's very unlike the National Wildlife Federation Certification Program, where you get a little sign for your garden that says your landscape is a native landscape full of things that wildlife appreciate. The NLCP was designed to provide training for people. And unlike some other training programs, it's fine to put this certification on your business card if you've completed it. And that means that people like businessmen who are landscapers can use this to advertise their services, and it will tell their customers that they're more familiar with native plants than most of your average landscapers. It can also be used as continuing education credits for some other organizations. I think the National Association of Landscape Professionals, the Texas version, whichever that one is, NLCA, I believe, counts it for continuing education credits for its members. It consists of several different levels, and everybody who starts the certification process has to start with level 1. Level 1 is the introduction to native landscapes, and it tells you how and why you would like to have a native landscape and the reason for preferring that over all these non-natives that are shipped into the nursery trade. Lots of different reasons, really. And it is really the foundation course. Each of these courses comes with a plant list. It's actually a great plant list with lots of information about the plants on it. You'll get some trees, some shrubs, some perennials, and some others in each set of plants. The plants are chosen region by region. So if you take one down where you are in Clear Lake, your plant list is going to be different than the plant list that the Fort Worth people use, and that the Hill Country people use, and that the West Texas people use. They are customized for the area. You're allowed to take classes from other regions, but for best results, you want to take one in your region, so you will be getting the regional plant list. Level 2 is landscape design with native plants, and you'll actually sit down with paper and pencils and design your own home landscape during this class. You'll learn lots of things about balancing the heights and the seasons and plants that can be aggressive that might need some containment and things like that. So it's a really great course and it's very hands-on. Level 3 is different. It's about the installation, the nitty-gritty of how to get your plants into the ground, and the maintenance once they're in the ground of native landscapes. All kinds of tricks and tips for keeping your native landscape looking just the way you want it. And that could either be very formal or kind of wild. Native plants are versatile and they can do it all. Level 4 is the stewardship of native plant communities, and that is about, in general, larger scale landscapes. And so, how can you get involved with the care and maintenance and preservation of larger scale native landscapes in your area? And now the NLCP program has a companion class. Right now, it's just one, Native Landscapes for Birds. It's pretty popular, and it looks like there may be, based on the success of the Native Landscapes for Birds class, there may be some more topics to follow, like landscaping for pollinators. Those first 4 classes that I talked about in detail, those have tests and certification. If you pass that level, if you pass all 4 levels, you're fully certified. But then the ones beyond that are just being called companion classes. So for instance, the landscapes for birds is already available and you can take it, but there is no test and there is no certification for that level or the other companion classes that could follow. Another program is the Grants and Scholarships program. And these are 2 undergraduate scholarships and 1 graduate research grant scholarship. The Kate Hill House Scholarship is available to undergraduates studying any field associated with native plants. And so this could be horticulture, this could be ecological restoration, it could be just botany. And I'm not on that committee. I can't tell you how they grade or judge those scholarships, but I think the qualifications are rather broad for that. And this is for an undergraduate college student. Then there's the Dr. Alf Richardson Undergraduate Scholarship, and that is for research or academic oriented undergraduates who plan to have a career in either academia or technical research on plants, native plants. So these are all tied to native plant study, but sort of different flavors. The Ann Miller Gonzalez Graduate Research Grants, again, are for graduate students involved in research related to native plants. And I'm not going to tell you exactly where those constraints are. That's for the committee. All right, the Native Plant Society has 2 big gatherings per year. There's the Fall Symposium and the Spring Conference. And the Fall Symposium is generally a little bit bigger of a deal. The Spring Conference is a shorter thing. Both of them offer speakers, get-togethers, information sharing, and generally field trips to interesting sites in the area. The Spring Symposium is pretty much always at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Research Center in Austin, but the Fall Symposium moves around from region to region. And I have a friend who told me this is the way she sees Texas. She goes to the Fall Symposium every year and she's been all over Texas on her way to and from those symposiums and at those symposiums. And the joy of that is you will have local experts in native plants from those regions giving field trips to really cool sites in those regions. So you're not just wandering around by yourself wondering, what is that plant? You'll have somebody right there at your elbow that knows. So do take advantage of the fall and spring conferences. The next one coming up, the Fall Symposium, is October 10th through 13th in New Braunfels. The Spring Symposium is right around the corner. I think it's the first week of March, and that will be in Austin. So another thing that you may not know about these symposia is you used to attend and they would give you a CD of what went on there. People who presented papers, those papers would be on the CD. But archives from 2007 to the present exist on the main NPSOT webpage under the Projects and Programs tab. And those are in downloadable form. So if you're ever, sitting on the couch with a broken foot, you can go and read to your heart's content all the things that went on at these prior symposiums. The other hot tip, we do have a speakers bureau, but if you go read some of those back archives, you're going to find the names of lots of different speakers that your chapter might want to invite. And I think I did cover a lot of what else is on this slide. NPSOT publishes a quarterly magazine. And this historically has been a very beautiful magazine. It's had fairly high level articles. We have had a lot of turnover in our publications teams recently. We've got some new people on board. They're pretty much set. They're getting in gear publishing these again. And, I expect good things from them. So do take advantage of our quarterly magazine and read that in either the paper or the digital form. But beyond the quarterly, there's also a monthly electronic only newsletter coming soon. This has not really taken shape yet. They're still looking for some people to be on the team to work on this. So consider whether that's something that you'd like to do. And this is statewide. So it will feature news from all kinds of chapters, events they participated in, heads ups about, maybe legislative bills we need to be thinking about, all kinds of newsletter things that aren't quite right for the magazine, just a different flavor of communications. Another thing on the main website, people had such a warm response to the Native Landscape Certification Program plant lists that it was decided these should be up on the website. So they've been put up there, and you can see that depending on the region you are in, you get a different thing to click and download your list. Once you download those lists, it's really wonderful. Here are all the plants from those levels. Now, are you going to learn what you learn when you go to the NLCP programs by just reading this list? Probably not. Your regional teachers are going to have lots of information that you want to hear in person. And each one of those NLCP levels also features a live walk for you to go out and see those plants. So they are often held at nature centers or places that have spectacular native plant gardens where you can learn a lot by actually seeing the plants in action. You want to do that as much as possible. But you can get the paper information here. And you can see that top row is Possible holly, Ilex decidua, and it will tell you where it's native. It will say things about the height, the width, how much light it needs, all kinds of growing tips, and then comments on how it performs in the landscape. The top one says striking red berries on bare branches in winter, tolerates poor drainage, fruits best in full sun, must have a female for berries, by in fall to ensure labeled females produce berries. And so you can see there's quite a bit of information, but it doesn't substitute for seeing one in person when you can. All right, so the plant lists have been up for a while for NLCP. And a little while back, somebody said, and I'm going to leave out names today because we have a lot of wonderful people working at the state level at NPSOT, and I am afraid that I'll forget somebody or I'll pronounce their name wrong or something like that. So just trust me, there's some wonderful people doing these projects. Anyway, one that's relatively new is the Native Plant Database. And you might think, well, the native landscaping lists are already up. Why do we need this? This is different. This has more information, different information. It's going to have a lot of pictures of these plants, and it's going to feature some plants that aren't on those NLCP lists as well. So you can go through and you can actually sort this. You can sort by all kinds of things, the maximum height, the region that it grows in, the plant family. You can go through their search boxes, check off the ones you're interested in, and it will hand you back a sorted list of these plants. Isn't that cool? If you've only got sand to work with, it's nice to know which plants are tolerant of just growing in sand. So this is going to be something that gets used a lot more, I think. And again, it's right on the NPSOT page. You just have to fish around in the tabs to see where it's located. All of our out-facing communications have been revamped over the last 2 years, and they're looking great, but things aren't where they used to be. So please be patient and click all the tabs, see what's under them. Another program of NPSOT is the NICE program. When NICE was first conceived, it was a way to interact with nurseries and let them know that, hey, we want you to feature native plants. We want you to show them, your customers, what a native plant looks like and is right here on your nursery shelves. And the old program used to be called Natives instead of Common Exotics. And the idea was to highlight nice native species in nurseries so customers could find them. Now the name has been changed. It is Natives Improve and Conserve Environments. And I think, it was just felt to be a kinder, gentler name to move this program forward. Some chapters have a nice liaison that they send out to work with nurseries. They can put up a sign that features a plant per month or work with the nursery in different ways. And I believe there is an archive of signs on the state website that you can access as a chapter and use. You don't have to create all the information from scratch if you want to do this. But it's nice to see there's also a list of the nice nurseries that we are partnering with across the state. So if you're on a trip and you're like me and you just love to stop in a native plant nursery on your way to here and there, you could try to find some of those nice nurseries on your trip. There is a list of nurseries that sell natives, and there's been a lot of discussion about how to create that list, who gets on and who doesn't. And it seemed like the minimum should at least be our nice partners. There may be some more on there now, I'm not sure, but you can find a list of nurseries. One thing I do with my program, the BBMT program, is read the applications that people send back. And we have now got a space on there that asks them to list the nursery that they're going to use, planning to use to buy their plants. And it's helping us find new, smaller nurseries usually that do specialize in native plants. So we keep that nursery list through the Bring Back the Monarchs program as well. Plant rescue digs. Well, my heart gets broken every time I see the bulldozers heading for something like this. And you can see those red flags. I was out with a professor of horticulture who needed this particular kind of plant. And those flags were just, less than 100 yards short of the bulldozers, which were planning to bulldoze that whole strip as soon as they could get to it. So there was a rescue dig organized so the horticulture professor could get these plants to experiment on, to propagate, to make available to the public. But because the rescue digs were so fractured in all different parts of the state, it was felt that they needed a little bit more organization and maybe some guidelines for proceeding. Things like never go without permission, and how to interface with the landowners, how to protect the landowners, as well as the people working on those digs. So there is now a brand new committee to work on plant rescues, and I think their stuff is either up on the website now or it is going to be up on the website soon. They've generated some documents like permission slips, waiver slips, a document on how to interface with the landowner to get this done well, so it doesn't reflect badly on NPSOT, it doesn't do damage to the landowner's property, and people don't get hurt while they're out there trying to rescue plants. I'd like to see as well a document generated on how to protect the plants between the time they're rescued and the time they're permanently installed. So hopefully that will be forthcoming as well. Among the kinds of plant rescues we do are seed collection. And this can be done at a local level through your chapter. You might want to check out the documents that Plant Rescue Group is putting together for how to do this well, how to do this safely. Seed collection from remnant prairies and other remnant sites is very important. Many of these sites will be lost to development, and we can still rescue the genetics from those sites. If we work fast, we work in a coordinated way, and we take friends along, both for our safety and for the productivity of the seed collection type rescue. Some seeds are on prairies that are well protected. And in that case, seed collection can be used as a way to move those genetics from that prairie to other sites that could be available, new restoration sites that have been degraded and need some help to get back to anything decent. Another newish committee that I think is way cool is the Native Plants in Schools group. They have done a phenomenal job in getting some resources up on the website. And again, you have to sort of fish around under those tabs to see which things are where. But when you see education, the Native Plants in Schools group has their things under there as well as a few other groups that work within NPSOT. And they're putting things up for teachers, parents, PTAs, students. We have a lot of resources gathered already. They have a school garden starter guide that's just amazing. And you can see that in the upper left tile. They're going to have a lot of school garden examples there. If you have great photos of a school garden that you have permission to share, please send them to the committee. They're looking for those. We have a native plants for kids presentation, and it is parked right here. If you want to go to a school and give this presentation, you can. It's for you to use. Under the curriculum and activities, they have lots and lots of resources there as well. Some that are well laid out, and then some links to other places to find curriculum that works with native plant gardens in schools. Let me show you an example of this school garden starter guide. So there's the cover on the left, and the very first page is a table of contents. They have some great stuff in here. Starting a garden, they have things you need to consider before you even get your garden off the ground. How to do that in a school. You have to navigate not only the school administrators, but the school maintenance staff and some other people that may have a stake in what goes into that school garden area. They do have a native plant list. They have a simple raised garden bed plan for you to use. And the number 4 key success factors, that might be my favorite. People overlook things all the time when they're starting school gardens. I know this because I see this on their BBMT grant applications. They're planning to put plants in April, let them grow just a little bit, and then walk away and not water them over the summer. That's not going to lead to good success. So things like the availability of water and the availability of people to water your garden, lots of things under those key success factors that they've identified for people who are just starting out and don't really know how to approach this project. So lots of great stuff in there. And don't forget to look at the other resources under their other tabs. This is their school garden starter list. And I'm a little bit excited about this. It's pretty new. They just got these documents up on the web recently, but I am seeing this exact list show up in the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas Garden Grant applications. That means people have been to the website, they have done research there, and they have seen this list. So I think that's kind of funny. I am very attuned to how plants are grouped in lists, and I noticed that there were at least 4 that had the exact same grouping. Another new project that's been put up on our state website is, I'm afraid it's ever expanding because we'll keep coming up with new invasive plants, the invasive plant database. Here are non-native plants that have gotten loose and run amok. Not every plant that comes from overseas is a big headache, but some of them are. And when they really earn that label invasive by damaging native ecosystems in Texas, they will show up here on this invasive plant database. There's been a lot of work on this. You can search for different things. You can search for different growth forms. You can sort it in different ways. And hopefully people will take advantage of this. If they're seeing a place that just has an awful lot of something that they're not familiar with, maybe they can come and check here. There are also some tabs for other resources to learn more about invasive species in Texas. And I think you might be able to see there's a tiny dark blue box way up at the top. These are screenshots of the web page, so I couldn't get everything I wanted to in there. But if you click that spread the word, there are resources under there to help you spread the word about invasive plants. One of those resources are these rack cards. Rack cards are just slim, stiff cards that take up 1/3 of a piece of paper, and these have fronts and backs. One side is red for the invasive plant that you really shouldn't be planting. And the other side is green, which will give you some substitutes for that invasive plant. In the invasive plant database, they also have a list of substitutes for that plant that you could plant and be perfectly happy with the look. It sort of replicates what you would have been going for with that invasive plant, but keeps you planting something native and less likely to cause headaches. So the rack cards, there are other links there is a trifold brochure, and there's this long skinny wallet card that accordion folds up that you could just keep in your wallet. There are also templates. So if what they have there under the rack card does not suit your region, you can make your own for your region. They've done a tremendous amount of work to make it easy for you to participate in these resources and in this program. And of course, all of these things you're welcome to duplicate. You don't have to ask permission. They're there to copy and use. Here is my committee, the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas committee. And most of the time we answer questions. We interface with landowners. Sometimes we do land surveys. There's a lot of phone and email questions that come in, and I try to answer those the best I can. I am a Monarch Watch conservation specialist. So when I get a question I cannot answer, I call Chip Taylor. I have him on speed dial, so it's easy. And he actually picks up my calls and will answer my questions, or he will send me the research study that dealt with it so that I can read and find you authoritative, scientifically based answers. Not so much an opinion, but what we really think is your best answer on either monarchs or milkweeds or the other plants that they use. But once a year, our big thing rolls around, and it is the Monarch Garden Grant Program, which is running right now. We just closed the window for garden grant applications February 1st, and right now we are deep in the grading of those applications. We have almost 100 applications, over 95, and we are sorting them and ranking them. And all of my graders submit their findings, and then I collate those and decide where does the money go each year. Last year, we spent about $26,000 and we gave away 43 grants. And when I get feedback from these, it's wonderful. They tell me, we tagged 50 monarchs in our garden last year, or the kids are so excited. They love their learning times out in the garden. I get great feedback from this. And unfortunately, there's a lot of it. I wish I could share that all the time with all of you, but it's very difficult to sort that out. So here's the thing about the Monarch Garden grants. What are we looking for? We're looking for a great plan that's shovel ready. You must already have permission. It must be in the state of Texas. It has to have some kind of public access. Now, if it's in a school, we consider that school to be its own population. And so we say, yes, that does have public access. We're looking for municipal building sites, possibly wildlife refuges, nature centers, all kinds of places where people can go and see these gardens. The gardens need to showcase native plants in a positive light. So they need to be well planted so the plants look good and people want to go home and plant them. We want people to see these gardens and want to plant the plants they're using. We don't really give grants to gardens that have a lot of non-natives and a couple of natives. That's not our thing. We're looking for gardens or sites that have mostly native plants. Sometimes they can't help a tree that somebody stuck in a while back and they don't have the authority to cut it down or something like that. But our goal is just to get monarch habitat on the ground all over the place and showcase native plants in a positive light at the same time. If we can, we also like that garden to be educational, whether that's through passive education with signs on the plants or programs that are planned, or research that's conducted in the garden, like monitoring eggs and larvae and counting the monarchs that come through or tagging them. All of those things count in a positive way towards your grant ranking. Believe me, my grant rankers, graders, whatever you want to call them, they are heroes. They work so hard on this, and it's an intensely frustrating process. You'll see a grant application that's wonderful, checks all the boxes, looks great, and it will be followed by one where the only conclusion is these people need some more information and some more education and a lot of hand-holding to bring that grant up to snuff. So one of the other things we do is try to match grants that need more help with chapters that are willing to help them personally. So you may be getting a call from me about certain grants in your area. I haven't actually checked yet. We're still in the ranking process. And some of those that are on the margins or fell below the grant, no grant line, we'd still like to help them along with installing a good garden that does what we want it to do. So I said a lot about that because I'm really deeply involved in this right now.
Carol, there was one question. How are those grants funded? What are the funding sources for the money?
That's a super question, and there is a little bit online about that. I think I actually had a screenshot of an old document from when I first gave this program. Our grants are capped at 600, not 400 now, so there's probably some errors in that page. But this year, our grants are going to be funded by donations from individuals and chapters, and there's a checkbox to donate to the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas program online under the Join and Donate tab. And you don't have to join to donate, by the way. I mean, both are under that option. We got a grant from Monarch Joint Venture. We received $12,000 to work on this grant. 2 years ago, we received $10,000. Their grant cycle is a 2-year cycle. And so they were pleased enough with our work a couple of years ago to go ahead and give us some more money this year. That money comes partly from Fish and Wildlife. And U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they have a big pile of money that they distribute to larger organizations than ours, who then distribute it to smaller organizations sometimes to get the work done. And we are getting the work done in Texas, so we have partnered with them to receive some of that Fish and Wildlife Service money. You'll see the logo on our NPSOT website under the BBMT program. Monarch Joint Venture is an umbrella organization that houses over 100, I think now. The numbers change rapidly, but I think they were close to 100 now. I think there are over 100 different organizations that are involved in habitat creation or monarch research directly. Some of them may be odd to you, like quail and pheasants forever. What do quail and pheasants have to do with monarchs? Turns out if you're planting for quail and pheasants, you're creating ideal monarch habitat. All right, so on your local level, we talked a lot about things the state does, and I am sure that I've missed some. But on your local level, there can be some awesome things going on. And I have played with the Clear Lake chapter before. They do some great stuff there. But some chapters do potlucks, garden tours where they actually tour native landscapes in a home setting where you can go see what somebody else did to their front yard or their side yard. You can view their rain garden or their dry riverbed type garden and see how they did it. Those are wonderful things. And usually when we do one, we feature several different looking landscapes, all featuring native plants. There are field trips to pristine wild locations that you might not be able to go by yourself. They might belong to a person or a group who doesn't allow the public on, but will arrange tours for groups like NPSOT. You can go backstage at places like the Botanical Research Institute of Texas, giant herbarium that has all of these pressed sheet samples of all kinds of plants. And other places of botanical interest. Groups sometimes get really interesting backstage tour that you would not see as a private person. Plant rescues, we talked a little bit about that, and a lot of local chapters are already doing their own plant rescues. There are plant sales, giveaways, or swaps. Those all take different forms depending on your chapter. Speakers, many chapters have a monthly speaker or at least an occasional speaker on different topics. We have a speakers bureau online, and that is also found on the NPSOT page. And there you're going to find a lot of speakers and all the names of the talks they do. I think I have about 20 in the speakers bureau listing. Some chapters do seed swaps or make seed balls and have different things that they are doing with seeds. Go out and plant seeds places and do restorations, all kinds of things. There's a field trip from my chapter. And we have a wonderful annual field trip in May. Look at the kids. They are really enjoying this. They're there with their grandfather, and he is a fabulous resource on native grasses. This is how we do it. We get a hay wagon, and we tour basically 3 sites that are pretty close. They're on the same road. Each contains a remnant prairie, and those remnant prairies are fabulous. Here in North Texas, this is what we get. That's the same field trip. This is what it looks like in full bloom. And so we want to make sure these sites are protected. that they stay protected in some way, that these seeds are there for a resource. This lovely lady that owns this prairie allows me to collect seeds and distribute those for other purposes. Got to be careful how you collect seeds, of course, and not damage the site. NPSOT helps on so many levels maintain these prairies. And if you're not already a member, joining is super easy. You simply go to npsot.org, click on the join hot link. It's a tab or a button or an underlying thing that you can find, and you can pay online and become a member within minutes. Now, everybody joins at the state level. We're all members at the state level, but you can then affiliate with a chapter near you. So if you're not already in the Clear Lake chapter, if you're listening in from somewhere else tonight, there's probably one near you. There's about 35 chapters across the state. And you can also affiliate with 2 chapters. I have a membership in 2 chapters. My primary chapter is the Cooke County chapter. And I think I also paid to see the news and things like that from the Dallas area chapter. So I get, because they're really close to me too. And that way I get double the news, double the fun, and get to know some really great people. But you know what the best part is? The friends. You can meet some fantastic people through NPSOT who are very giving of information. I think I've never met someone involved with native plants who was really rude about sharing information. They all want you to know what they know so everyone can move forward protecting our natural heritage. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to questions there, and not just questions, but comments.
So I have a couple of questions about the Bring Back the Monarch grants.
Yeah.
Is that primarily geared for schools? Are schools the main groups that apply?
No, it is not. We have funded Master Naturalist, Master Gardener, and Native Plant Society demonstration gardens. We have funded churches, synagogues, mosques, and Hindu temples to put in a demonstration garden. We have funded oddball museums that have a patch out front that's along the sidewalk. We have funded a lot of different things. What it is not designed for is your personal home landscape at a residence. That we cannot do. And I've actually been yelled at by somebody who thought we should do that. And I honestly didn't know what to say until 5 minutes later. You know how that is. But what I thought I should say was, you find me the billionaire to fund that and we'll do it. We'll get a building, we'll get staff, and we'll do it. Because it would be wonderful, but we just can't on our budget.
So one more question on that. Can we find out who are the recipients of those grants?
Yes, each year there is a list that goes out, usually in a press release, and it's probably archived somewhere, past recipients. It is a little bit hard. We've been asked to put them on a map and things like that. And if you've thought about this, you probably realize some things like school gardens may not have a long shelf life. And that happens when they change administrators or school districts change the way they use buildings or things like that, and decide to put a parking lot on it. Sometimes school grants simply don't survive past a couple of years. So while that might be a normal lifespan for them, something outside the visitor center at a wildlife refuge probably should have a longer lifespan. I heard from somebody the other day that they had chapter signs that they issue for gardens, and somebody went out to visit somewhere and found the sign and no garden. So I don't want to issue signs and say this is one of our gardens, because things happen that I can't control. Once that garden is in, it may live 15 years, it may live 5 years, and we don't know. So I don't want a lack of garden or a poorly maintained garden that fell on hard times to reflect badly on NPSOT when people see those signs. But in general, we can tell you where they are.
Patty says, I'm excited to see the invasive species rat cards for community outreach. Does she just email NPSOT and request those? So how do we utilize those rat cards?
That's a super good question. I would check with, just email Meg directly and find out, or the general NPSOT mailbox, and they'll funnel it to the right person who can answer that. I don't know if they have those printed, or you are to print your own and distribute them.
Okay, thanks. Sheila has a comment. There is a local school habitat garden that has lasted 25 years in the Seabrook area.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. And that's extraordinarily long for a school garden. We had a perfect grant example last year that was well organized, beautifully done, and I would have funded that one in a heartbeat. And just before we decided on who was to get grants, the lady who had done that pollinator garden and has done some other pollinator gardens that I've seen wrote to me and said, I am withdrawing our grant request. And I thought, oh no, this is what I really want to fund. Why? And she said, I received unofficial word that that school is to be closed in 2 years. And so sometimes it's just like school districts realigning, they have fewer kids, so they're closing some campuses, things like that. It's a volatile situation. And the thing that keeps a school garden alive, my predecessor, Kathy Downs, was very convinced that it was using the garden for actual school projects. If they're doing monarch research out there, tagging, making graphs of the number of eggs and caterpillars and so forth, using that tied in with their school curriculum, it will survive. And I think she's right. But if the people who were excited about it depart the school, and there's a lot of turnover in schools, then gardens at schools can kind of languish unless they find another champion. That's just the way it is. And I've had to resign myself to going, oh, this is such a good plan. And maybe it won't be there in 8 years, but maybe it'll be great for the first 5.
Do you know of any sources that provide funding for private owners that help to convert acres to a native prairie?
Absolutely do. So your first stop should be the USDA. A subdivision of that is the NRCS. Those guys have several programs to help landowners convert back to native plants, and in particular, plants for pollinators. There's separate funding for that. But to do that, I would like to send you to Texas Parks and Wildlife. They have a liaison person whose sole job is to help you connect with the correct USDA grant and help you navigate with the USDA people. And his name is Will Newman, I believe. So look for Will Newman on the Texas Parks and Wildlife website. Contact Will and ask him how to get started. There can be other resources that will help as well. Native American Seed has a lot of archived articles, and you can find the how-tos of how to put in a restored native plant area. I don't want to say prairies because not everything's a prairie, right? Most of Texas, but not everything. And then there are some other places that may or may not have funding in a given year, depending on the size of your land and depending on who they got funding from and what they are obligated to spend it on. The National Wildlife Federation sometimes has funding available, but I don't know what their criteria are either. And there are places like Quail and Pheasants Forever that might actually have some grants available. So some of those things started in the Midwest and they're expanding southward as well. There is, let's see, P2P, I think that's pollinators and people or something like that, may have something available, but start with the USDA and Will Newman and see what you can scare up there. We actually sometimes approve a grant that's using seeds, and it is still not for private landowners. And I'm sorry, we don't have that billionaire backing in our own office with staff, but we don't. It's me taking away with 2 fingers on my computer. So, and a bunch of great volunteers. I see you had Greg Pearson. He's here tonight. He's one of my volunteers. Thank you, Greg. I would suggest too that if you are interested in converting something to a more native vegetative state, that you start attending wildlife management seminars. They may be put on by your AgriLife Extension Service office occasionally. Every county has an AgriLife Extension agent. Call them. Find out if they know where there are some. Up in my region, we have something called the Noble Foundation, and they put on great wildlife management seminars. And I've been to quite a few of those. But there are other places that do that, different land conservancies and so forth.
But I think that's all in chat for now.
Okay. Well, I'd like to add one thing too. That's not all that's on the website. There is so much more there. Lots and lots of things. And way, way, way down at the bottom of the page, there's something called Chapter Tool Chest. And it's got a lot of things there too that not only chapter administrators can use, but you can use them for hands-on projects and things like that. Lots of things to look at there. It would take you days to read through everything that's up behind the links on the NPSOT website.
Yes, there is. And that's one reason we wanted you to come talk to us. One other question, and I think our chapter has an answer to it. Denise says, living in a suburban neighborhood, any places to get signs to let others know this is not a weed patch. And so
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah.
share my answer, I think, for the chapter, if anyone else wants to add to it. But our chapter actually has signs available. The state NPSOT had a couple of different beautiful signs, and one of our members, Mary Horn, was very important in designing a beautiful sign. And so we have these signs available. We had them for sale at our holiday gathering in December, but they will also be available for purchase at our plant sale.
I think that's a really good answer to that question.
Yes.
But also, if you have a group of native plants that looks like a weed patch, which mine sort of does, then another thing is to find out what your homeowners association agrees to. The homeowners will give you the right answers. You obviously have to be careful of your neighborhood and being very careful of putting a sign out and educating. And certainly in this area, there's a lot of people who have native plants in their front yard and they have their signs. And as Cheryl said, we have gorgeous signs that we sell at the plant sale. And I think people will be attracted to those signs. So I think it's something we're working on to try to improve over time.
Those are great signs. Yeah. And there are other places for signs as well. If you're not local and you're not going to be able to get to their plant sale, there are some online resources and those are proliferating. So it's getting easier and easier to find a really nice sign for your yard.
My background in dealing with the homeowners association at this point is in the past, but they used to have rules against signs.
Yes, some do. I think Helen was talking about that a little bit. That can be really hard to navigate. There is a document about how to speak to your HOA online under that additional stuff, the chapter tool chests, and somewhere down at the very bottom of the page under those links.
He's right about the signs. But on the other hand, if you put them around your flowers, you put a sort of a barrier to the grass, I think you won't have any problem, but you need to work with the rules of your HOA. April 5th, we'll be selling the signs. We have a bunch to sell.
And that's at U of H, University of Houston, Clear Lake is where that sale actually happens.
Yeah, it's at the Environmental Institute is over there on the side. They give good directions to get there. It's very close to Bay Area Boulevard.
I think you're one of the few chapters that's really actively involved in propagating your own plants together like that. And I think that's great. A lot of us wish we had facilities to do that. Your chapter is like superstars. You sort of started and we're born fully formed and functioning, it seemed like to us. You just kind of sprang out of nowhere. So yeah, I've been down to U of H Clear Lake a couple of times, and you're lucky to have that association with them too, where you can have meetings and work there. All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing and head back to my regularly scheduled evening. And thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you so much, Carol. That's been great.